my neighbor, Miss Janell. She's a cancer survivor.
I was sitting on the couch and I reached over to pet my dog and I just happened to brush my hand across my chest and I felt something that was abnormal. Right then, I thought, if this is cancer, I'm gonna be able to help other people. I had a little hiccup in my attitude about losing my hair. I was literally walking letters up to, or handing them to the receptionist at my oncologist saying, stop, I don't want to go through this anymore. Got my senses back and I realized this is another journey where I'm going to be able to help people. Knowing that breast cancer has so much research and the new technology, I knew I was going to be okay. Mm-hmm. I credit where I'm at today, mentally, physically, spiritually, to a 12-step program. I've been riding a pink cloud for the 15 years of my recovery. Having a positive attitude and not dwelling on why did this happen to me or poor me. It's how can I help others? This is happening to me for a reason. Therefore, I'm going to be able to take this experience and help others.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Beast vs. Zombie. I have an extremely special guest with me, my neighbor, Miss Janell. She's a cancer survivor. She has an amazing story overcoming breast cancer in her life that we're going to share today. Thank you for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So the first question I want to ask is, what kind of advice would you give to somebody that's going through any kind of challenges in their lives?
Well, I would probably suggest it a positive attitude. And I know that that's easier said than done. But, having a positive attitude and not dwelling on why did this happen to me or poor me. It's how can I help others? This is happening to me for a reason. And therefore, I'm going to be able to take this experience and help others. So I believe having that mentality you can get through any challenge.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I know definitely having a positive attitude has not just helped me like overcome cancer, mm-hmm. but anything I'm going through in my life, right? Like just always having a positive attitude always helps you kind of see it in the right way. Like you said, it all happens for a reason. And if you look for the positives in every reason, then, you usually come out on the other side in a great place.
I generally look, when challenges arise in my life, I often think that this is going to be an opportunity for me to help another person. Mm-hmm. And, my spirituality has plays a big part too in this, where I know that God's not doing this against me, or he's doing this for me to help others so I can be a vessel of help for him.
Yeah, I like that. I agree. I think life is happening for you.
Absolutely.
And it's on us to like try and understand, like, why is this happening for me? Like, why is it, like you said, for a reason? And it's easy, like you said, when you get cancer to think like, well, why did I get cancer?
So I was, I think I'm very blessed in when I had discovered the lump on my left breast, I was sitting on the couch and I reached over to pet my dog and I just happened to brush my hand across my chest and I felt something that was abnormal. And right then I thought, if this is cancer, I'm going to be able to help other people. So I am very grateful that that's where my head flipped to, or my mind flipped to, because anyway, any other way, I don't know. It would be a different outcome for sure. Mm-hmm. So that definitely got me through to the next stage or the next process of my cancer journey. And if you'd like me to share that with you, I can do that.
Yeah, share your story. Share how you found out that you got cancer.
So again, I was sitting on my couch. I found the lump, and I had a trip to Cancun already scheduled. So I went to Cancun, and I just enjoyed myself on the beach there. And I went with a girlfriend of mine, and I had her feel it too. And she's like, "Yeah, that's just a little abnormal." I thought, "Oh, you know what? I'm prepared for whatever it is, And in my head, I already knew that it was cancerous. So when I got back, I had a biopsy, or excuse me, the mammogram, the ultrasound, and that came back as a BIRAD5. And then I had a biopsy, and that biopsy came back, cancerous. So invasive ductal carcinoma. And again, it wasn't much of a surprise. And what was challenging was setting up, finding a surgeon, and which I found a great surgeon. Can I mention the name?
Yes. Sure.
Dr. Suzanne Alid. She's in Summerlin. And I went out to her. She did a little ultrasound as well, and she gave me the option to do a lumpectomy or a mastectomy. And I felt at that time that I was a good candidate for a lumpectomy. And so she agreed, and that's what we went through. But when I left her office that day, she gave me a list of doctors I needed to contact. So I had the radiologist, a plastic surgeon, and an oncologist, all within the area of where I live, which is in Silverado Ranch area. So I chose the Cancer Center off of St. Rose.
Okay.
But for somebody that's never really been to the doctor, I mean, I don't remember ever going to the doctors prior to this. And then just to have this big list of doctor appointments that I needed to get to, that was a little overwhelming. So I got a binder. And I thought, I separated it all out. This is the oncologist. This is the radiologist. This is the plastic surgeon. Made all my phone calls. And my whole team was so receptive and very kind and gracious. And, Dr. Parikh is my oncologist at the St. Rose off of St. Rose Cancer Center. And Dr. Schwartz is my radiologist. And then Dr. Earl is my plastic surgeon.
Okay, cool.
So I haven't been through the plastic surgery yet, nor do I think I'm going to.
That's good.
But after that experience, or contacting the oncologist, they had taken the biopsy, the tumor. This is after the lumpectomy. They had taken that tumor and did a mammoprint. And the mammoprint is where they dissected and just took all these different slices. And I looked at, I think it was 72 different genes in that tumor. And that's where it came back aggressive. So I came back a luminal B high risk. And what that meant is that I couldn't go from lumpectomy to radiation. I had to do the lumpectomy, which I did, and then chemo. And that thought of chemo, when I asked my oncologist, my first question is, am I going to lose my hair? Not, is my life going to be saved, or my odds and my risks? And it was, I had a little hiccup in my attitude about losing my hair. And, my poor oncologist was going back and forth, suggesting that I needed chemo and I needed to do 4 to 6 treatments. And I kept talking to his nurse practitioner saying, no, maybe we can go a different route, maybe some natural way. And it wasn't, it was just really me being vain and, not wanting to lose my hair. And I came after about 2 weeks of going back and forth, sending my oncologist. I was literally walking letters up to handing them to the receptionist at my oncologist saying, stop, I don't want to go through this anymore, right?
Right.
But after about 2 weeks of that, I got my senses back, and I realized this is another journey where I'm going to be able to help people. And I'll be able to persevere through this, and knowing that breast cancer has so much research and, the new technology, I knew I was going to be okay, and my higher power, my faith, I knew I was going to be okay. And this is going to just be another journey in my life, another chapter in my story. And, so let's, buckle up and go for a ride. Yeah. And that's where that landed. So I did 4 rounds of chemo. And it was after the 4th one, I went to my oncologist and I said, are you sure I need to do 6? Are you sure? So he actually, for my birthday, it was last December, and he told me that, he thinks my numbers were good enough that I could just do 4. And then I went through the radiation, which was 5.5 weeks of radiation. And now my hair is growing back. Last year in August, I had long blonde hair, and now it is brown and curly.
Wow. That's fun. That's
as it's growing back. And it's been an adventure. It's been a journey. And I just want to give anybody who's going through any type of cancer that there is hope.
There is hope.
There is hope. And I would be I'm here for you.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm so happy that you have such a great attitude. It's great. What makes you think like that? Where did your attitude come from?
Well, that's such a good question. And I have a great answer.
Okay.
I credit all of my where I'm at today, mentally, physically, spiritually, to a 12-step program. Okay. So I January 25th of 2010, I found the 12-step program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it has truly saved my life. Mm-hmm. And through the 12 steps, I've been able to experience a new way of living than how I was living prior to that. I mean, clearly there was a reason I went into the program, or I found that program. And the way my life has not been a very positive attitude and happy-go-lucky and free and helping others since for 27 years. I had a drinking problem, and I am a true alcoholic in recovery. And so with that, going through the 12 steps, it has given me the tools on how to deal with challenges, go through them with grace and dignity, and I was continually helping others. And, so a big credit to, all the credit goes to AA. I will say, going back to when I was going through the chemo, and we'd go up and, sit in the chemo room and we get all hooked up. I thought to myself, there is no way I could sit here for 3 hours getting chemo. I could not sit still if I was not sober.
Right.
So, that played a huge part in my recovery. Mm-hmm. Being sober was, again, I am forever indebted to society, that I will always be a participant and a helping person instead of a menace to society, as I think that I was back in the day. But that really has contributed to a positive attitude, because once I experienced life without alcohol, I felt that I was reborn. I felt, oh my gosh, I have a second chance at life. And, I've been riding a pink cloud for the 15 years of my recovery.
That's
and
awesome.
During those 15 years, yes, I've had lots of trials and tribulations, but they're all manageable. with having a positive attitude. And again, that's a direct result from a 12-step program.
That's cool. That's really cool. I'm just glad that you're able to look at it from the perspective that you look at it. I think that definitely, I'm sure it has a lot to do with, us, both of us, and you in particular, like overcoming what you have overcome with breast cancer. I think 100%. And that's a relationship I see with all the guests I have is we've all been able to overcome cancer, and a lot of it has to do with attitude, for sure.
Right?
Yes. And everybody deals with it in different ways, right? But the attitude, I think the most consistent thing is just every person that I've spoken with had an attitude like, I'm going to figure out how to beat this, right? How are we going to overcome this? They didn't just quit on themselves. Some people definitely felt, right? We all felt differently, right? Even me, when I first got cancer, I didn't believe it. But like I said, then you do have a kind of in the back of your head, like, well, why did I get cancer? Like, they don't tell you how this happens, right? Like, did you have any type of genetic history or anything like that?
So my mother had stage 0.
Okay.
And that's where they just take off some skin. And that was about it. And that was in her 70s. So my father, he had passed away from lung cancer. And although I don't know if lung and brain cancer are genetics, more or less your environment. He used to work at a coal plant. And are you familiar with what asbestos is?
No, tell me.
Well, it's a very toxic chemical that, you're not even supposed to be near it. But dealing with coal in the mining plants, he used to take asbestos and mix it up with his bare hands, because at that stage of life in 1940s or 50s, they didn't know the effects and what it could have, mesothelioma, and how it affects the lungs and breathing in asbestos.
Okay, wow.
So again, I think that the lung cancer, and then it spread to his brain, but I believe that was from his environment. Although I will say, when I get a headache or if I wake myself up coughing, my mind automatically goes to, I better get this checked.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I think that perhaps it may always default that way. And I do. And I take the appropriate actions to at least ease my mind. And I will ask my fellow nurse practitioner, oncologist, or radiologist, you think these are my symptoms? Can I get a scan or an MRI?
Yeah, no, I get it. It's always like in the back of my head when anything is going on with me.
Right.
Like I'm real aware of what's going on with me. I always have been. I've always played sports my whole life, so I've always been very aware of like my body, what's going into my body, how that's making me feel, things like that. But definitely more now that I've gotten cancer, definitely more aware. Did you have any other symptoms other than you just felt a lump in your breast?
I did not have any other symptoms, not that I recall. I mean, upon reflection, it was, just feeling that lump. And it was stage 1, by the way. So it was 1B, which means even though it was a small tumor and it was at a infancy stage, stage 1 infancy, the tumor itself was aggressive. So I'm so grateful that I did catch it early.
Yeah, that's what I always hear is, right, you want to catch it as early as possible in order to, and I think that's with all cancers.
For sure.
Is you want to catch it as early as possible. So I'm glad that happened. So going back, right, you said you had your surgeon, Dr. What was
Alid, Suzanne Alid.
Suzanne Alid right? And you said you got a lumpectomy, but there was another option that you could have possibly got. Can you explain kind of maybe the differences between those and what that is?
Sure. A lumpectomy is where they go in to whichever breast you have your tumor in, and they remove the cancerous tumor. So you still have your breasts still attached. A mastectomy or a bilateral mastectomy is when they take off one full breast or both breasts is the mastectomy. And then they put expanders in after your surgery. They'll put expanders in your skin to stretch it out a little bit. And then you go through plastic surgery where they reconstruct the breast. And she did tell me, if you go with the mastectomy, you never have to do a mammogram again. And for me, I don't mind mammograms. So I thought, well, that's kind of silly. In my head, I thought, well, I don't mind doing mammograms. So a lumpectomy, I feel that I'm a good candidate. Plus, it was at an earlier stage.
Right.
So although I did have a trace that went to my lymph node, and she was able to remove that.
Okay.
If God forbid that it does happen to come back, I more than likely will do a full mastectomy.
Okay.
So, but right now I'm in remission, and hopefully will stay that way, and I'll get over this. I guess I got a 2-year hump, and then the 5-year, and hopefully that'll be good.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be good. Because you're extremely healthy. So to give you guys some context here, Miss Janell is my neighbor, and when I first met Janell, I was just starting to recover from my last bone marrow transplant, and I had came back, and I could barely walk for like 3 miles. And Janell was running like 8 miles a day. Like 8, she has a dog. We both have dogs. So we both see each other walking the dogs every morning. And it was really actually inspiring to me that, right, she's up early. She's getting it. She's completely destroying me as far as like how much we're able to do physically. And it inspired me. It motivated me. And was always kind of like I'm a very competitive person, and so I always took it as a challenge, and I was struggling to try and catch up. And I'm still honestly, right, like even now I just walk. I haven't been running or anything like that. But how has like any physical workouts, right? Maybe the type of shape that you were in before and what you're doing now, how did that help or affect anything in your cancer journey?
Well, it has affected it a lot. I am no longer running 8 to 10 miles. And going through the chemo and going through treatments. And by the way, I had no idea that when I first met you, that's what you were going through.
Yeah.
So it just comes around full circle until we started opening up and talking to one another, that we're able to experience identify with one another's journeys.
Yeah.
But during COVID, I didn't mind COVID. I just ran around, and it was great. So me and my dog would go out and run. And then after COVID and I got the cancer, it was very difficult to get out and just walk. It felt like I had cinder blocks on my feet. And for some reason, it had affected from my knees down, where I just had to shuffle. And I'm so grateful for my dog, because she is always getting me, cancer. Yeah, she's not too familiar with cancer, but she knows, Mom, we have to go out and do our walk and do our run. So, and that's what got me motivated. to get out there and do that. And at least I was able to make it around maybe a half mile, maybe a mile in our community. And now slowly but surely, I've been able to complete a 5K, which is 3.14 mile, but not at the pace that I used to. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I am okay with that. As long as I'm out, and whether I'm walking or shuffling, which I don't do too much shuffling anymore, but walking or jogging. I think I ran into you one time. I said, I'm just jogging, right? Across from running and jogging. So anyhow, it has affected, but I was able to walk outside, and I got to the point where I didn't care about my hair. So I was walking in the community bald, bloated and bald. And I was okay with that. Yeah. I was okay with that. At least I was outside.
Yeah, that's good. I know there was times when I was going through, specifically like right after my last bone marrow transplant, it was really hard physically. When I had chemo initially, I was able to like still play basketball, still like run around.
And how old were you?
I was only 19 initially when I was diagnosed. So I was 2 years into college, and I was still very energized. Like looking back, I had a little bit of low energy, and I remember that was one of the side effects of Hodgkin's lymphoma. But through all my chemo treatments, I stopped lifting weights. I just kept playing basketball as much as I could. And then there was times when I did the 2 bone marrow transplants, and I would be in the hospital. You would just walk, or I had like a stationary bike. So I would sit on the stationary bike, and then getting out the last time was probably the hardest physically and like the biggest physical challenge that I've ever dealt with. Right. I would go back home to Portland to do a bone marrow transplant, because they actually don't have the capability to do a bone marrow transplant here in Las Vegas, in Nevada. I would have had to, the closest place is like up in Utah. But it was easier for me to go back home to Oregon because that's where my family is. And you need a caregiver. So my mom was my caregiver both times. And when I got out of the hospital this most recent time, it was hard. We live in a cul-de-sac. It was hard for me to sometimes just walk around the cul-de-sac, or to be able to sometimes like get out of bed. I wouldn't get out of bed till like well into the afternoon. Like I just like was so tired, and your cells are trying to grow back in your body. So it's just like a process that you kind of have to be patient with. And I think that was physically some of the toughest times. And then right now, physically, I have necrosis in my hip, is what it's called. And so I'm not getting enough blood flow and oxygen to my hip. So my hip bone is kind of like breaking down. So that's why like you haven't been seeing me run at all, because I haven't been doing any like impact cardio. So I'll walk my dog for 2 miles in the morning, but all my cardio right now is like Stairmaster, elliptical, spin bike, incline walks, things like that is where I'm getting all my cardio. Like, so I just...
And you look great. So whatever you're doing, keep it up, because you look phenomenal.
Thanks.
You know, how long did it take you in your recovery to get back outside? How long were you, and this is 2 times you had to go through chemo.
Yes. So yeah, I had 2 different bone marrow transplants. I had a bunch of different chemo. Overall, right, it took me about 10 years to like on and off to beat cancer. And after this most recent time, once I finally got out of the hospital, it took me a little bit of time, but I had already had a trip planned to Spain with a buddy of mine. And that was probably one of the best things
Oh,
that I
nice.
had, was because it was like, okay, I had booked my trip already while, I think it was before so it had to be so far in advance that it was before I had got diagnosed again.
Okay.
And when I got diagnosed again, it was like, well, I still got the trip, whatever. I need to focus on my health. And the trip is so far, I'm not going to cancel the trip.
Yeah.
And I remember going through the whole bone marrow transplant process because I had done it once before. And in my mind, I was like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna do this again. It's gonna be smooth, right? I've already done this before, so I already kind of have an advantage here.
Right.
And that was not the case because it was different. Basically, the first time I gave myself my own cells, and the second time my dad was my donor. So I got my cells from my dad. So the process is a lot different. The treatments going into it are a little bit different. And then, right, this time, opposed to me giving myself my own cells, now I have somebody else's cells in my body, right? So that comes with a whole bunch of different risks. And one of those is like graft versus host disease. Basically, the new cells in your body do not, how do I say it, like get comfortable. Your body basically starts rejecting the new cells in your body. And then basically there's like a war going on. Your body is attacking these foreign cells, and then that starts to cause, and you could possibly die from that. And so the way they counteract that is they let the foreign cells come into your body, and kind of your body kind of rejects it a little bit, and they let your body reject it a little bit for like a day. And then they make a medication that kind of like counteracts it. It's the craziest
Wow.
thing. It's the craziest
Fascinating.
thing. And so, anyways, the second transplant was a lot harder. It took me a while to get out of the hospital. I was very frustrated, so my attitude kind of broke at this point. And I got really negative, and I knew I was being really negative, and I kind of like leaned into it, honestly. And I was just very frustrated. And I was just trying to like will myself like out of the hospital and like to healthy. Like I was really excited to be done with this stage of my life, you know? And it was some fault that, right, like I kind of rushed myself out of the hospital. So then I got out of the hospital, and they basically supplemented and tried to fast track me getting out of the hospital because I was basically like complaining and like stressing them out so much. So they supplemented me with steroids, and then as soon as I weaned off the steroids out of the hospital, I got a fever again and had to be readmitted again, and it kind of like prolonged it anyway. So like things like that where I was just like being negative and not really just being patient, I would say, made it a little bit harder.
Sure.
And then once I did finally get back, like I said, I had a trip. I took that trip to Spain. And when you go to Europe, you just walk everywhere. So I was just walking a lot, and it was exciting. It was my first time to Europe. I went with a couple of buddies, and then Nigel, Virgil's son, he plays basketball over there. So I'm going to his games, right? I'm hanging out with him. It's like family away from home. So
Sure.
he's showing us around. I'm with one of my best friends, his sister and his girlfriend at the time. And right, I think some of that like adrenaline and energy of like the newness helped me make that a little bit easier.
For sure.
And right, we just would walk around. And then by the time I got back, I had been laid off, so I needed to find a new job. So it was honestly kind of perfect because it gave me a lot of free time to myself to keep recovering, right? To slowly work my way into the gym again. Slowly, I was trying to like work my way up to just running a mile at the time. Again, the dog is a huge help still to this day.
Right?
Right? Makes a big difference. He's always excited to just go for a walk.
I know.
You know?
Cashy.
Yeah. So he's always so excited to go for a walk. He's been a huge help in my entire life, right? He is a lot, right? We walk him twice a day. We walk like 4 miles. So we all kind of like tag team it. But right, like even I think like 5 years ago, I had torn my Achilles, right? And I needed to get back. After I went through PT and started walking again, he was a big part of me getting back to walking and getting back to full
Right.
speed then and running and things like that. And then now is a big part in me just staying active. And so that's been a huge, like just like you said with Shelby, that's been a huge part in my recovery is being able to just take him for walks.
You know, dog spelled backward is God.
Yeah. No, yeah. No, yeah. And, like, dude, all your dog wants is love,
I
right?
know.
So
I know.
they're great. They're right. Man's best friend, right?
For sure.
They're awesome and keeps me healthy. But yeah, it's been hard with my hip. Like,
Are you eligible for a hip replacement?
Yeah, I saw a doctor in town and I've gotten a second opinion as well. And they said eventually I'm supposed to get a hip replacement. One of the doctors said I could do it right now.
Right?
And I it just didn't seem right. So I've been dealing with this since I was like about 30. So for the past year was when I finally figured out what was going on with my hip. And I lift on my legs. I just kind of work around it right now because in my mind, it didn't make a lot of sense to get a hip replacement right now. For one reason, it wears out. So it has like a 20-year kind of like lifespan in which it'll wear out. And so in my mind, it was smarter to push it out as far as I could. Also, I'm not running around playing basketball every day like I used to or doing a lot of impact stuff, but I'm still able to keep in very good shape, do cardio. I lift very heavy on my legs still. I'm about the strongest I've ever been in my life, including on my legs. And so in my mind, it just didn't make sense to do such an invasive surgery right now when I'm still able to be so active and very strong, and it's not affecting me in my like normal every day-to-day activities. So
Are you in pain?
I'm not in pain.
Okay.
No. Yeah, I'm not in pain. It will bug me when I do more impact things, right? Like if I do go play a game of basketball and I'm running, I'm jogging, I'm jumping up and down and stuff like that, that's when I'll start to feel my hip. I really noticed it when I was snowboarding 2 seasons ago. And I was just jumping off of everything. And every time after I went snowboarding, I noticed my hip was hurting. And so in my mind, I was like, well, I just like tweaked it or strained a muscle or something. It's just going to heal itself, right? So like I just kept kind of letting it rest. And every time I would go snowboarding, my hip would bug me. But I didn't think anything of, like, I just thought it was like a normal kind of injury. Right. And it never seemed to heal all the way, which was kind of odd to me. And eventually it showed up on a PET scan. Eventually it showed up on a PET scan, but it wasn't like my PET scan is clear. Like I don't have any type of cancerous activity in my whole body. And so when something populated in my hip, they weren't concerned like, oh, right, you're having a recurrence, like you have cancer. It was just kind of something popped up on my hip and you should get it checked out. And I saw an oncology orthopedic, I think. basically he was like a hip doctor, but he specialized in oncology patients.
Oh, okay.
Right? So it was
Sure.
like a cancer hip doctor or a cancer joint doctor.
And that was here in
right?
Vegas?
That was here in Vegas. His name is Dr. Hillock. And like I said, he suggested that I could get a hip replacement right now. And he could see immediately from the x-rays that I did that my bone is kind of collapsing. It's not getting, he knew right away. And then when I got a second opinion, they didn't recommend me get a hip replacement immediately because they felt that I was extremely active still and it's not bothering me. So they said that I would need one. And I've even tried to reach out to places like stem cell treatments, things like that. And everybody says there's nothing that they can do. I just kind of have to, I guess, basically wait for my bone to break down and then one day get a hip replacement.
Well, when you start feeling it, or walking with a limp, I'm sure that, maybe your decision or your thought process might change.
Yeah.
When it starts making your life unmanageable.
Exactly.
Right.
Right. And until then, I was just like, nah,
Right.
I can kind of work. Like, I snowboarded all last season. Now that I know what's going on with my hip, I can work around it, right? And I can do all my workouts and everything around it. So, right, when I go snowboard, I just don't jump off stuff and land hard, right? I just like cruise around.
Right.
But that's like the only kind of full speed activity that I have right now that I can do that's like at my tempo. I've been diagnosed like ADHD or ADD, right? So like I always have to be working out or running around.
Moving or doing something.
Right. And so that's kind of my fun, active hobby that I do right now is just snowboarding. But I'm not playing basketball.
And look what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
Just sitting here calmly and having a conversation.
Exactly.
Right? That's
Yeah.
a little different.
Yeah, definitely. This has been super fun that I've been able to share stories like yours.
Right.
And like you said, like help people and give back. It's definitely made a huge impact. And I know as this continues, like it's just going to keep making a better impact. So it's been super
Absolutely.
exciting. Yeah. And so, yeah, it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So,
Yes.
right.
Get your mammogram.
Get your mammogram.
Get them done.
We did the strides for cancer,
making strides.
making strides for breast cancer last week.
Yes.
So that was an awesome event. How do you give back in any other ways to like the cancer community or to the community in general?
Well, I guess the ways I've been giving back is working with people that are. It seemed after I was diagnosed with breast cancer, I ended up knowing you and you and you and you and you, and it just, I couldn't believe it. I am in constant contact with lots of people or several people on a daily basis, from internship, school, 12-step program. And one person after another seems to be getting diagnosed. And I just want them to know I'm always giving them, my number and reaching out to them, how they're doing. And matter of fact, a friend of mine, his wife got diagnosed a few weeks after I did, or had a lumpectomy after I did. They weren't happy with their oncologist, so I brought her on board with mine, and so we were kind of riding the journey together with the same oncologist. And we're like, okay, well, what did you experience this time when you went up for chemo? And it was fun, not fun, excuse me. It was nice to have a little partner, attached to you, going through the same thing, and. When we went to go pick out wigs, even though I didn't do much with the wig because it was too hot, but how when you're getting married, they say, she said yes to the dress. We held up signs at the wig place and it says, she digs the wig.
That's hilarious.
I dig the wig.
Yeah.
So, and kind of making it a more of a fun journey, not a fun journey, but, that just being hopeful and that you're not alone. I have been with the American Cancer Society doing different events, so forth, since 2013. I used to do the Relay for Life.
Oh, wow.
And that was for the Henderson. And we would go out to different, I think it was the high school football fields. And one time it was at the M, and then it was behind the Rio. But we would walk the track for 24 hours.
Oh, wow.
You know, for all cancer survivors.
Mm-hmm.
And our little group was called Hooked for Life. And so we made sandwiches and provided food to sell. And all the proceeds, of course, you know, would go to the Cancer Society. But, yeah.
That's cool. That's so cool. There's so many ways to give back. And I'm always trying to find more ways to give back.
And what you're doing right now is phenomenal. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's so fun. It's super simple, right? Like we just went and walked that day for like 3-4 miles or whatever that looks like, right? And everybody had a blast, you know, and it's for a good cause. It's like things like events like that kind of like fill your cup. Right.
For sure.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah.
You know, we getting to meet, you know, other people and, you know, that are on that journey. And Bree she's an inspiration.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
I think everybody there is, you know.
Yeah.
Everybody in general. Everybody has inspiring moments and, you know, in their life journey.
Yeah. I think everybody's story is huge. And I think it all matters. And I think stories are extremely powerful, and that's why I decided to do the podcast, because I feel like people's stories matter, and to be able to give them a platform to share their stories ideally should be able to help others to overcome anything they're going through in their lives, for sure.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So, right, I remember there was a period of time that you had took off and you were in Florida like all summer. Was that like recovering? Was that wasn't going through treatments, right?
No, it was not. So my significant other also lives in Florida. So we go back and forth. And I just thought it was a good opportunity. I had finished my radiation in April. And my semester with school, and also I do want to add, UNLV was so compassionate, and they worked with me so lovingly and caring that I was able to still maintain my graduate status, but only taking one class.
Oh, wow.
So I was so grateful that I was able to still take one class and not be exempt from school. So I was able to do that for 2 semesters. So getting back to finishing just this last semester and my treatments, I thought, well, let's just go to Florida and hang out, for the summer. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
So it was nice. It was nice. It wasn't, I was just to do nothing. Yeah. And that's what I did. Hung out at the beach and, we had little get-togethers, and, my best friend from Minnesota came down to Florida. She also, by the way, came to help me through my treatments. We've been best friends since fourth grade. And so she came down to live with me in Vegas, for a few months going through my treatments, which was nice. And that way Michael was able to, my significant other, was able to maintain what he needed to do in Florida. He still has the business in Florida that needs to be, looked after. Mm-hmm. So it worked out very nice.
That's cool. I know I've only been to Florida a couple times, but I know, like, when I was in Fort Lauderdale, they said a lot of the people attest their health to the weather there.
Well, I hear that too. I will say there's a lot of moisture. It's very humid, especially in the summer. Lots of bugs, but I'm used to those from Minnesota. That's initially where I was born and raised in Minnesota.
Yeah.
it is quite the different environment. And when you come here, or when I come here, I did notice immediately that my lips were chapped and, my nose was a little dry. But over time, I get used to it.
Yeah.
So I do see, Michael always complains about coming to the desert and, he goes, I'm breathing sand, and mountain and dirt. And he goes, it's not like that in Florida.
Yeah.
So I suppose, the United States has a different flavor for everybody. But or each part of the United States, if I had my choice, I would definitely like to live back in Orange County, California. Yes. Not on the beach side of the 405 or the 5, not on the other side, not inland.
Yeah.
But right now, I'm just going through with whatever I need to. I'll finish school, my grad school, next fall.
Man.
So I'm excited about that. And after that, who knows where my journey will take me.
So were you about to get your degree in?
Public health.
In public health.
Yes, on the social behavioral track. So my passion is to help with our opioid crisis.
Okay.
We are making very small progress, but I believe we are still way behind the time. There are way too many overdose, way too many deaths that, there needs to be change.
Mm-hmm.
So I am, what Master of Public Health does is basically strategize, develop, design, and implement programs and interventions, in a nonprofit or in a clinical setting. I prefer to stay with the nonprofits. It's not so corporate. That way the people that are making the decisions already have boots on the ground. We're already in the midst of everything. We're able to see real world experiences and real world statistics versus corporate, and this is just my opinion.
Yes.
Corporate, the people that are making the decisions aren't really on the ground. So I prefer to stay in a nonprofit or even a smaller company for profit, but definitely having a foot in the door to help with an opioid crisis and substance use, period, as well as alcohol.
Yeah.
Which is a substance, but that's my main focus.
Yeah, that's cool. That's we need people like you in the world.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's such a great, it's cool when people can have some type of passion and bring so much value, right, to the world, and do it in a way that, how do I say it, right? Like just helps the world be a better place. I think it's really important to have people that are dedicating their lives, right? And like passionate about making the world in a better place, right? Because we're all here, we're all together.
Just trying to do the game of life.
Exactly.
Right? And I am a true believer in second chances. In everything. We're all here trying to do this thing called life. And, there's no such thing as failure. There's just, opportunities. When things don't go the way you want, or you get caught up, or, you have diseases or a virus or, substance use. They're all challenges that doesn't make you a bad person. We can overcome. We can overcome together.
Right. I agree.
It's definitely a we together game of life, in my opinion. Having to do it alone, it would be challenging.
Yes.
It's we need to help one another.
100%. The best things in life, they all happen in teams.
Yeah. Nice.
I always say
absolutely.
that I grew up playing team sports, so I knew the power of working together as a team and what goes into that and how hard it can be, but also how cool it can be when you have a team on the same page as far as what you guys can accomplish.
For
right?
sure.
And so like, right, we're going through cancer. So for you, right, like your team is your significant other, right? Your best friend. Can you kind of speak to that as far as what your support was like while you were going through this and how that kind of helped everything as far as getting through this journey?
So, yes, the support actually was from others, just talking about it too and learning about other people's experience. And I met a lot of people in the chemo room. It was just kind of, we were all there, trying to get another minute of life. But it got to be where, yeah, what do you have? What do you have? What do you have? It
Yes.
was more or less like an open general talk. It didn't have any stigma or taboo to it. And then that opened up a lot of doors and support. And, oh, you go there, and, oh, this place will help you do this. And maybe you should try, get a hold of these people. And networking that way was a huge support. My girlfriend coming down was wonderful. She has her own place at my house, and she brought her dog. And it was just nice to know that there was somebody else in the house. So when Michael was in Florida, it worked out great. If I needed something that I was unable to get, she was there to be able to provide for me. And I wasn't shy to ask for help.
Yeah.
If I felt that I needed help, I definitely, would ask. And that's another thing. Sometimes I have heard people can be so prideful that they don't want to ask for anything. If I needed something, I would ask. In my family back in Minnesota, they're always, checking in and calling. And my mom was here. She came down to Las Vegas when I had the surgery. And I tell you, the lumpectomy really was a piece of cake. It wasn't, I didn't, maybe a couple days, but other than that, a couple days down after surgery. But other than that, that was probably the easiest out of all of it.
Yeah.
Was to have the surgery. Chemo was the most difficult, and radiation, which was interesting. I qualified for a new technique of this radiation, which was the machine. It just went over my chest area, but I had to hold my breath for 30 seconds. And when I'm holding my breath like that, it's pushing away from my heart, right? My lungs are expanding, it's pushing away. So the radiation wasn't, because it was on my left side. So my heart wasn't getting exposed only by 1 or 2%. But still, I'm like, that's okay. 1 or 2%, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Sometimes that got a little, because I'm still on steroids, and to hold my breath for that long, it's as the machine goes, 7-8 minutes, and you hold your breath for like 30 seconds. So that was interesting new technology.
That's cool.
Right?
That's super cool. I always find it interesting, the technology that we get from, like, it's amazing. And they do, I mean, it's different everywhere, right? I get a lot of care done here, but then also in Oregon as well. But even like for me, there was 3 years between my 2 transplants. And the first transplant, I could only get a full match, or I donated my own cells to myself. By the time I got to the second transplant, so this was 3 years later, I was able to do half matches, quarter matches now. And that's why I was even able to use my dad's cells for the transplant. And so that was just an example in my life how research, advanced so
Right.
quickly and saved my life, basically. So things like that are really cool. And I'm always seeing posts where they're finding new ways to cure cancer or help cancer, or statistics that research has found that's supposed to support us being able to speak to it at least better.
So, what do you think about where they're studying, or where the great minds are at about being able to identify in your chromosome or your gene whether you're going to be an alcoholic, if you're going to be, if you're going to have cancer, and they're able to just pull that out of your DNA. That's where they're at right now.
Yeah, and adjust.
I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll ever see it in my lifetime. But, I also think, I wonder if that would just make us a little robotic.
Right.
I don't know. But, they're cruising on that line.
Yeah. The research is next level. And it's fun to see. Regardless of, everybody, there's always good and bad uses for all of this information. Right. So it's just, I always just think it's fun to see how people use it for the right reasons.
Right.
It's the same thing as like social media and AI, all those things, right? I mean, I understand how a lot of these things could be used for negative reasons, but I try to just see like, well, how could these help us and benefit us in
like
the,
what
in
we're
the right
doing
ways?
now.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
We didn't have this, 40 years ago, 30 years ago.
Right. I didn't have
Not to this extent.
this platform.
Right?
It was not this simple. Right.
Yeah.
My last question.
Yes.
And then we got to get out of here.
Okay.
Is what is the best advice that you've ever gotten from somebody in your life?
Know what keeps you going. Know yourself on, what it takes to keep going. And, and just being able to identify what makes you stop and what makes you keep going. And I think that that has always stuck with me. I know what keeps me ticking, and it is, being able to help others, I receive benefit from that. And I'm not monetarily, but I receive, a sense of gratification, a sense of self-worth, and self-satisfying, and willingness to keep going through another day, regardless of the trials and tribulations. So I know what keeps me going.
Yeah. That's a big thing for people to understand, right? Is why do we do things? Right. That's probably the biggest question that everybody should understand is, what motivates them, right? I always say if you have a big enough why and you really understand the reason why you do things, it should be big enough to outweigh any of the smaller excuse, right? It should be bigger than all your excuses.
I agree.
And
100%.
And like you said, it comes a lot with being educated on like who you are as a person, right? Because we're all different. We all do things for different reasons. We've all been raised and grew up in different situations and circumstances, right? And understanding yourself and why you do things and what motivates you, right? I always say it's just people in general, right? It's my parents that I want to make them proud, right? It's like people that look up to me, right? Like I want to be a good example. Friends and family that I care about, right? I just want them to be able to see that things are possible.
Absolutely.
Whatever that is.
Absolutely. And even, when it comes to the challenges or negative chaos in life, we get what we tolerate. And
Yes.
that was a piece of advice that somebody had given me. And I thought, oh, wow.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to tolerate chaos and dysfunction, that's what I'm going to get.
Yep.
So knowing that, I know how to remove myself from circumstances. And again, apply, positive steps moving forward.
Yeah. I think Yeah, that's huge. It's huge to just be aware of the circumstances you're in and what that's doing. And like you said, anything that you'll tolerate, that's your fault.
Yeah, right.
You know, it's your fault.
We're not a victim of circumstance. We're a creator of it, right?
And it's completely up to you.
Yeah.
100%. So that's all we have today.
It was a
for this
pleasure.
episode.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your story today, Miss Janell. I really appreciate you taking your time. Everybody, make sure to follow the podcast on platforms like YouTube and Spotify so you can see the full videos. Go check out the website, BeastvsZombie.com. That's all we have today for you guys. Be a beast.